My sister-in-law has made some really bad choices. So you know what I tell her? You're not moving in with me and my husband. I don't care if you need it. I don't care if you're going to be homeless. I will not allow it. But what happens with the family fallout after that is devastating. Let me start from the beginning so you can understand.
It's really funny when you have a beef with someone, and to show that you're the big person, you try even every possible way to bury the hatchet. But the person keeps treating you like trash. Then suddenly, when the person needs help, he or she comes knocking on your door like nothing ever happened. And the past between you guys, such audacity. See, my story is a bit complicated, but I'll try to make it as straight arrow and understandable as possible. When I was just rounding up high school, I met Derrick, my husband now, and because we had so many similarities, I began hanging out with him till we eventually fell in love with each other. As a teenager then, I don't think I really understood the true meaning of love, and I was kind of emotionally unstable at the time. Derrick was a great guy, and he did everything he could to make me happy. I think 4 months into our relationship, Derrick introduced me to his family, sister, brother, and parents, and they all accepted me. Since Derrick's sister Shelby was his only family member I could freely relate with and talk to, I'd say we got pretty close and we were almost like sisters. Well, even though Derrick and I had never talked about marriage, Shelby used to address me as her future sister-in-law, and I'll be honest, she always gave me special treatment. To make me feel like I was already a part of their family, Derrick's parents would always invite me to their family picnics, camping, and other things they did for fun. I also got invited to dinner multiple times and was allowed to sleep over in the house as far as I spent the night in Shelby's room. The reason Derrick's parents and family were so welcoming was because right from Derrick's childhood, he had always been a loner and didn't have many friends. Even when we became teenagers, Derrick was very reserved and never talked about women. Well, according to Shelby, there was a time their parents tried telling Derrick that it didn't matter if he liked men or women. All they wanted was to see him happy. Since Derrick had never talked about or brought a girl home, his parents assumed he might have been gay. So they just wanted to make him feel comfortable just in case he was afraid of coming out. 3 months after their parents had the conversation with Derrick, we met a mutual friend's birthday party and we clicked right away. By the time, he was already done with high school and preparing for college. Well, I was just rounding up with high school. Like every other teenager that had their heads and hearts deeply in love, Derrick and I believed that our relationship would last long, and that we would always have that fairy tale love, but when he was ready to move for college, our relationship began to shake. No, Derrick was not the problem, I was the problem. Firstly, I wasn't emotionally mature and had so many silly expectations that I expected to become a reality. After Derrick left for college, he tried his best to always communicate with me and keep things the way that it used to be. Sometimes Shelby and his family would invite me over just to make sure that they weren't treating me differently when he was away. If I'm being honest, the love that they showered me with when Derrick moved to college was even more than I received when he was around. Shelby tried her best to always carry me along, and she always assured me that Derrick loved me a lot and would not do anything stupid in college. So, sadly, despite everything Derrick did to prove to me that he loved, and everything his family did to show me that I was still a part of the family, I broke up with Derrick. The distance was really straining the relationship, and I couldn't handle it anymore, so I just ended things with him. After Derrick and I broke up, I thought that he would understand and just simply move on with his life, especially as somebody who was now in college. But that was the opposite of it. He was very heartbroken, and his state of mind affected his studies. Not just him, his family were heartbroken too, and Shelby took it as something personal. To show how mad she was, Shelby blocked me on all the mutual social platforms and even blocked my contact. We stopped hanging out, and there was even a time we bumped into each other at the grocery store, and she pretended like she didn't know me. Sincerely, seeing how much I hurt Derrick and his family made me feel bad, but the deed had already been done. Well, as time passed, I moved on, graduated from high school, and went to college. I know this information isn't necessary, but being a freshman in college opened up my eyes to a lot of things. After seeing how difficult it was to juggle studies and life as a fresher, I realized how difficult it must have been for Derrick to handle both school and me. Also, in college, I never had a steady relationship, and it continued like that until my third year. During my third year, one day I was on a Facebook when I got a message from Derrick. After almost 4 years of no communication, he claimed that he just wanted to check on me, and from there our conversation led to a date. We were both clinically single that time and didn't think a date could hurt. Seeing Derrick again after so many years gave me butterflies in my tummy, and he looked even better than when we were dating. For what it's worth, guys, I apologize for being such an a-hole and giving him such a hard time when I should have encouraged and supported him. Somehow, we still had that spark, and hanging out a few more times uprooted all the love and desires I buried. To cut the story short, Derrick and I began dating again, and when he told his family about it, they gave me the cold attitude for a while, which was totally understandable, but months later they became more welcoming. Well, everyone except Shelby, of course. Right from when Derrick's family knew that Derrick and I were back together again, Shelby made it very clear that me and her could never go back to the way that we used to be, and that I should not expect her to treat me nicely because what I did to her brother was totally unforgivable. Even though I knew quite well that I had hurt Shelby and the rest of Derrick's family, I accepted my fault and tried to explain to her why I acted that way. You know, not just that, I also did everything possible that I could to make Shelby forgive me. On her birthdays, I would get her expensive gifts, send Christmas gifts, and do literally anything I could do for her to see that I would never hurt her brother again. But despite everything I did, Shelby would always treat me like trash and act like I was a nobody, especially since she married a rich man that took care of literally everything and funded her expensive lifestyle. Maybe she believed that she was better than me. I actually stopped trying to get Shelby to like or forgive me when she humiliated me on my wedding day. She deliberately refused to take pictures with Derrick and I, and then created a scene when her parents tried to convince her. Guys, as if that wasn't enough, one of my friends who happened to be in the same room with Shelby and her friends on my wedding day sent a voice recording of all the nasty things Shelby said about me to her friends. Seeing that Shelby was the problem, Derrick never bothered to talk about me and Shelby getting close. Whenever Shelby treated me poorly and I complained to him, he would only say that I should give her more time, then she would come around. Well, in the 5 years of our marriage, Shelby never came around, at least not in the way Derrick meant. For example, if Derrick's parents invited all of us for a family dinner, Shelby would deliberately ignore me for the whole evening and treat me like I was unimportant or not a member of the family. Last year, she invited only Derrick to her birthday and her children's birthday party, and she made it crystal clear that Derrick was only the one that she was expecting to see. With all that going down, I also stopped acting like a needy puppy around Shelby and began to ignore her just as much as she ignored me. Now, guys, the reason I'm even sharing my story here is because 5 days ago, Derrick and I were at home one evening when we heard a knock on the door. Upon entering the said door, Derrick realized that his sister Shelby and her 2 children, a 4-year-old girl and a year-old baby boy, were the ones at the door. As soon as he let them in, I saw it. It was Shelby. I became a bit uncomfortable because she never visited here. The next thing we knew, Shelby told Derrick that there was something important she needs to tell him, but she wasn't comfortable saying it with me around. So she wanted me to excuse myself, and at first I didn't want to leave, but Derrick gave me the look. I had to leave then and go into our kitchen. Well, guys, shortly after going into the kitchen, Derrick came to me and told me that Shelby needs his help. She wanted Derrick to accommodate her and her children for a while until she gets back on her feet, and that's because she was having issues with her fancy-pantsy husband. To be a bit more specific, Shelby thought that she could eat her cake and have it too. And she tried rekindling the fire with her high school sweetheart, and she got caught. As a result of that, her husband kicked her out of the house and contacted a divorce lawyer. When Derrick told me all of Shelby's story, I'll be honest, I didn't feel any pity for her. So, when he asked me if she and her kids could stay with us till she got back on her feet, as she claimed, my answer was a strong, unresounding no. Well, I simply said no because I wasn't ready to walk on eggshells in my own home. Definitely not because of Shelby. When Derrick went back to Shelby and said that we could not accommodate her for a while, but she could spend the night and find somewhere else the next day, Shelby gets really mad. She said she knew it was because of me that her brother was turning against his family. Then she called me an immoral woman and left. That same night, Shelby took her kids to their older brother's house. Only God knows what Shelby told the other brother, because about 2 hours after she left our house, I was receiving all these long text messages from him telling me how much of a horrible person I am, how selfish, insensitive, self-centered, and, well, wicked I am. I know I said I can no longer care about how Shelby treats me or what she says about me to others, but I can't get all the horrible words out of my head. Derrick has told me to simply ignore both Shelby and the brother, but I just can't. I hate how their brother's suddenly painting me as a bad person, but never said a word when Shelby was treating me like trash. You know, this alone has been eating me up for days, and that's why I'm here, guys, asking, am I the a-hole for not allowing Shelby and her kids to move in with us, even when she showed no respect for me in my own home the minute she walked in? Or should I have turned a blind eye to her ill treatment and let her and her kids move in? I do look forward to the comments from you guys. Thank you. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Man, what a crazy story. I'll be honest with you. I did not expect OP to turn her away. I didn't. I thought she would be forgiving of it, but no, that's not what happened, guys. This one comment got a lot of attention. Here it is. It says, "You suck, OP. You really do. You want to know what I think? I think that your conscience is telling you what you need to hear, and that's why everything your sister-in-law and brother-in-law said to you has been bugging you. Even though you and Shelby have not been in good terms, it's really cruel of you to manipulate your husband to turn his back on his family. You know, then come here and act like you're some saint. Even if you didn't feel any pity for your sister-in-law because of your issue in the past, what about her kids? Did they offend you too? At least they had the right to ask for help from their uncle, but because you're too busy thinking about yourself, you refuse to help them, and, you know, everything your brother-in-law said is true. You're selfish, you're wicked, you're insensitive, and I hope poor Derrick realizes, before it's too late." Update number 1. Hey guys, well, I want to thank you so much for the comments. I do apologize for taking 14 days to make an update. I was reading through the comments, and I must say, I'm glad to see that so many people would have done the same thing if they were in my shoes. I've also read some ugly comments, and I do understand your point of view, and I would like to add that if I had allowed Shelby and her kids to move in with us, that would have been me making myself uncomfortable to be pleasing someone that doesn't care one bit about me. You're all forgetting that when Shelby came to my home, she asked for me to excuse them because, quote, she had something important to tell her brother that did not require my presence. That just shows that she didn't see me as an important person and has no respect for me in my own home. And that's something I can never tolerate. Anyways, that's not the reason that I'm here making this update. I'm making this update because a week ago, my husband learned from his older brother that Shelby and her kids have moved into her parents' house. She could not remain in her older brother's house because he already had his mother-in-law and 2 of his sister-in-laws living with him. So there was barely any room for Shelby and her kids. As for those asking if Derrick confronted his brother after I received that insulting text message, the answer is no. Derrick did not confront his brother or even say anything about that insulting text message. He just told me to ignore it and let things slide because he didn't want things to get more complicated. I don't want to sound judgmental or anything, but I see no reason other people should be suffering for Shelby's mistakes. It's just not right. She had a big home with lots of rooms and literally everything she wanted, but she took that for granted and now she's moving around trying to inconvenience other people. Now, the main tea. 3 to 4 days after Shelby moved into her parents' house, Derrick received a call from his parents, and they asked for a family meeting. Normally, when Derrick's parents want to invite Derrick and I for dinner of some sort of celebration, they usually call Derrick first and call me afterwards. But in this case of the family meeting, I received no such call. After I didn't receive a call, I suspected that Shelby must have fed her parents lies, just like she fed her older brother with lies about me. I even forgot to mention that just around the same time Shelby moved into her parents' house, I got removed from their WhatsApp family group chat, and Derrick has refused to say anything about it. Even though I was not personally invited to the family, Derrick has persuaded me to go along with him, and he claims that his parents told him to bring me along. Somehow I have the feeling that this meeting might not end well, but I'll go anyways. Thank you, guys, for all the support that you've shown and given me. I promise to make another update as soon as we return from the meeting. Update number 2. Hey guys, it's me. I just really appreciate the comments and suggestions, and I do not take this show of love for granted. I promised that I would make another update once we return from the family meeting, and that's what this update is about. So, the meeting was 2 weeks ago, and for a heads up, it did not end very well. Before the meeting started, I could already see that everybody, except Derrick and I, were all frowning, and I suspected it had to do with Shelby. While I was right about everything, Shelby went back to feed her parents all these lies, and she told them I kicked her and her kids out of the house. Well, that explained why her parents did not call me. Shortly after the meeting started, my mother-in-law and father-in-law began to yell at Derrick about their disappointment and how he did not help his sister. Then they called me a homewrecker and a selfish person. They even accused me of trying to tear the relationship between siblings apart and said a lot of awful things about me. I don't know if Derrick felt bad about what his parents said to him, because he ended up agreeing for Shelby and her kids to move in with us against my wishes. As I make this update, Shelby and her kids also have been living with us for the past 2 weeks, and it really sucks. I won't pretend to be happy that I'm living under the same roof with a woman who cannot even stand my sight. Even as she moved in with us, she doesn't eat the meals I prepared, and she has poisoned the minds of her kids towards me. Every time I finish cooking, Shelby goes into the kitchen to cook her own food, even when her brother has told her several times that it's okay. It's okay for her to eat my food. I can't complain about her cooking in the kitchen with the stuff I bought with my money because Derrick's not even going to do anything about it. For the past 2 weeks since Shelby moved in, it's been an issue upon issue, and I can't continue walking on needles in my own darn house. Since Derrick's family said I was a home breaker, I thought I could tolerate living in the same house with Shelby, but I just realized I can't. She treats me like a servant, messes up the kitchen, and then I tidy it up. Shelby had not helped with any chores in the house. Well, the last straw that broke that camel's back was Shelby organized to get together with her friends without informing me. That day I came back to see strangers in my house. Yeah, when I confronted her about it, she claimed she told Derrick and he said he could do whatever I wanted. Well, I called Derrick and found out that she's a liar. Derrick gave her the permission to host the party and he didn't even bother to let me know? Jeez, it was so embarrassing. I'm making this update because I've had enough and I'm thinking of moving out of our house temporarily, so it doesn't look like Shelby will be leaving anytime soon. I'm so confused right now and I just really need your help and suggestions. Thank you, everybody. Final updates. Hey guys, it's been a while, hasn't it? I had to take a short break from social media. 3 months ago, I made my last update about Shelby moving into our home. I'm making things unbearable for me. I also mentioned that I wanted to leave temporarily so Derrick could be with his sister, Dearest, and some of you supported me on that decision. I think 3 days after I made that update, I left Derrick's house and I told him that if he wants me back, then Shelby has to leave. To be honest, I don't think Derrick would do anything about Shelby after I left. The same day, he kept blowing up my phone, and after a whole day of not taking his calls, the next day he sent me a voicemail. He apologized for everything that he's done, and how he would just make things better. Long story short, he made Shelby and her children leave the same day he sent me the voicemail. As expected, after she left, their entire family called Derrick and I, and they took turns insulting us over the phone. My mother-in-law told Derrick that she was very disappointed in him, and he was no longer their son because he chose his wife over his own blood. Then asked for me. I got called all the worst names you can think of, and when I couldn't take it anymore, I was forced to block my father-in-law, brother-in-law, and mother-in-law's numbers. Even Derrick was forced to cut off from his parents because it was very obvious they were manipulating him. Honestly, we thought Blocking Derrick's parents' number would end things, but 3 days after we blocked them, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law showed up at our house unannounced. But when Derrick refused to let them into the home, they made a scene and it drew our neighbors' attention. My mother-in-law was literally yelling at me for taking her son away from her, and she said something about making the mistake of accepting me into her family after I left the first time. Well, when Derrick and I could not contain their noise and drama, I was forced to call the police on them, and once my brother-in-law saw that I was actually calling the police, they left and never showed up again. For the remaining weeks, Derrick and I did not speak to his family, and personally, they no longer existed to me. Just 2 weeks ago, I got awarded a mega contract, and I've been waiting for the approval for 3 years. When the contract was approved, our local news carried it. As expected, friends and some of the family members called to congratulate, and I invited them to my small celebration party. While my small party was going on that evening, I saw mother-in-law and father-in-law come inside of our house with a bottle of wine, and they acted like they had not just called me a homewrecker a couple of months ago. I was so mad and asked them what they were doing at my party, and that's when mother-in-law apologized for everything they did and said, and she tried to hug me. Out of shock and reflexes, I pushed her away and told her, "This is my party. Get out or I'm calling the law." It was quite embarrassing for them, but I didn't care. She left since that day, and till date, I've not seen or heard from her, and I hope I don't. I know some of you will say that what I did was humiliating of her, but I don't care. If it was, not awarded the contract, she wouldn't have showed up to apologize. It must also confess that Derrick has really changed ever since I returned to our home. Aside from cutting off his family, he treats me like a true queen, and our marriage has really improved in the last couple of months. Oh yeah, and as far as Shelby, her parents kicked her out of their house when they found out that both of her kids actually belonged to her high school sweetheart and not her ex-husband. Guys, thank you so much for all the support, comments, and suggestions. I do appreciate it.
Guys, there's only one comment I want to review because this comment caused a lot of arguments and I just want to hear your opinion on it. It says, "Hey, OP, you are the jerk. You have no shame coming here to tell us how you manipulated your husband to send his sister and her children out of your home. I wish your poor husband saw how much of a snake you really are. I feel bad for him because women like you are not worth men cutting off from their family for. As your mother-in-law and father-in-law, did you expect them to call you and just praise you for kicking their daughter and grandkids out of your home? Of course not. You kept calling them toxic, yet you're the toxic one who thinks of nothing but yourself. You're also bragging about how you publicly disrespected and humiliated your mother-in-law and father-in-law in front of their guest. This only shows how much of a weak man your husband is, and it shows that you have absolutely zero respect for him. Do you guys agree with that comment or not? Drop it down below and let's discuss it, guys. Thank you for joining me on today's story, and I hope you enjoyed it. My name's Mr. Redito. I narrate stories like this every single day, and I'm telling you, you never know what to expect. Make sure you guys subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.